A briefcase. Brown leather, worn at the edges, sitting alone on cold concrete in a Milwaukee parking garage. November 12, 1976. 9:15 a.m. Inside, files, pens, a half-eaten sandwich, $42 in cash, and a wallet containing the ID of Tyler Harrison, a 38-year-old accountant who left his home just 90 minutes earlier. Tyler Harrison never made it to work that day. He never made it home that night. He never made it anywhere ever again. His car sat untouched in his driveway. His wife waited by the phone. His children asked when Daddy was coming home. But Tyler Harrison had vanished. No witnesses saw him leave the garage. No blood marked the scene. No ransom note arrived. No body surfaced in the Milwaukee River. Just that briefcase. Abandoned. Unexplained. Impossible. The police had one question. Did Tyler Harrison run from something, or did someone make him disappear? For 48 years, that question haunted Milwaukee. For 48 years, his family lived without answers. Until 2024, when investigators knocked on a door 340 miles away and found something nobody expected. A man who'd been dead for half a century was still breathing. Before we unravel this 48-year mystery, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling us where you're watching from. Trust me, you won't believe where this case ends up. Tyler James Harrison was born on March 14, 1938, in Green Bay, Wisconsin, to working-class parents who believed in three things: hard work, family, and keeping your head down. Tyler learned all three lessons well. He grew up quiet, not shy, just measured. The kind of kid who did his homework without being asked, who saved his allowance in a coffee can, who calculated risk before taking it. His high school teachers described him as methodical and detail-oriented, traits that would later serve him perfectly in his chosen profession. Accounting. Numbers made sense to Tyler. They followed rules. They balanced. They didn't lie. In 1962, at 24 years old, Tyler married Linda Kowalski, a secretary from Milwaukee with warm eyes and a practical mind. They were a good match, both sensible, both cautious, both building toward a stable, predictable future. Michael was born in 1964. Sarah arrived in 1967. Tyler worked his way up at Midwest Manufacturing Corporation, a mid-sized industrial firm in downtown Milwaukee. By 1970, he'd become a senior accountant, earning a respectable salary, providing for his family, living the American dream in a modest three-bedroom house on the northwest side of the city. Neighbors described the Harrisons as nice but private. They didn't throw parties. They didn't make waves. Linda kept a tidy home. Tyler mowed the lawn on Saturdays. The children played in the backyard. Normal. Unremarkable. But beneath that calm surface, something was shifting. In 1974, Sarah contracted a severe respiratory illness that required hospitalization and months of specialist care. The medical bills piled up faster than Tyler's insurance could cover them. The mortgage payments felt heavier. The car needed repairs. Michael needed braces. Linda noticed Tyler coming home later, his face drawn, his shoulders tight. He'd sit at the kitchen table with a calculator and a stack of bills, his jaw clenched, his silence thick. "Are we okay?" Linda would ask. "We're fine," Tyler would say. But they weren't fine. By 1976, Tyler Harrison was a man standing at the edge of a financial cliff, trying not to look down. His coworkers began noticing changes too. Tyler, always composed, started snapping at colleagues over minor issues. He'd take phone calls in hushed tones, his hand cupped over the receiver. He'd leave for lunch and return 2 hours later with no explanation. One secretary, Margaret Flynn, later told police, he looked like a man who wasn't sleeping. Like something was eating him alive. She had no idea how right she was. Because by late October 1976, Tyler Harrison had a secret. A dangerous secret. A secret worth $127,000. And in 3 weeks, that secret would destroy everything. October 18, 1976. A routine internal audit at Midwest Manufacturing Corporation flagged something unusual, discrepancies in the accounts receivable department. Small at first, a few $1,000s here, a mismatched invoice there. But when forensic accountants dug deeper, the numbers told a disturbing story. $127,000 had vanished over 18 months. The money had been siphoned carefully, systematically, through a series of false vendor payments and manipulated ledger entries. Whoever did this understood accounting, understood the system, understood how to hide in plain sight. The trail led to Tyler Harrison's department. Tyler shared access to the compromised accounts with two other senior accountants, but investigators noted something crucial. The discrepancies aligned almost perfectly with periods when Tyler worked alone, when his colleagues were on vacation or out sick. On October 25, Tyler was called into a closed-door meeting with his supervisor and the company's attorney. They didn't accuse him directly. They asked questions, probing questions, about his access, his procedures, his oversight of vendor payments. Tyler's hands trembled as he answered. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the October chill. "I don't know anything about missing money," Tyler said, his voice tight. "I follow protocol. I always follow protocol." But his eyes told a different story. The meeting ended without resolution. The investigation would continue. More forensic analysis. More interviews. A formal hearing was scheduled for November 15, 1976. Tyler had 3 weeks. At home, Linda watched her husband unravel. He stopped eating. He'd wake at 3 a.m. and pace the living room, his footsteps creaking on the hardwood floors. He'd sit in his car in the driveway for an hour before coming inside, staring at nothing. "Tyler, you're scaring me," Linda said one night. "What's happening?" "Nothing," he replied. "Work stress. It's just work stress." But it wasn't just work stress. Margaret Flynn, the secretary, remembered something else. In early November, she overheard Tyler on the phone, speaking in a barely audible voice. "I can't do this anymore. I need a way out." When she asked him later if everything was okay, Tyler smiled, a thin, hollow smile, and said, "Everything's fine, Margaret. Just fine." Coworkers began to whisper. Some believed Tyler was guilty, that the quiet accountant had finally cracked under financial pressure. Others thought he was being set up, that someone else had committed the crime and Tyler was the convenient scapegoat. The company hadn't pressed charges yet. The evidence was circumstantial. But everyone knew the November 15th hearing would be decisive. If Tyler was guilty, he faced criminal prosecution, prison time, the destruction of his reputation, and the loss of everything he'd built. If he was innocent, he faced months of investigation, suspicion, and the stain of accusation that never fully washes away. Either way, Tyler Harrison's life as he knew it was over. On November 11, 1976, the night before he disappeared, Linda found Tyler sitting in the dark kitchen, staring at a photograph of Michael and Sarah. "I'm sorry," he whispered. Linda didn't understand. She would spend the next 42 years trying to. November 12, 1976 began like any other Friday. 6:30 a.m. The alarm clock buzzed in the Harrison household. Tyler woke, showered, dressed in his usual work attire, gray slacks, white shirt, navy tie. Linda made breakfast, eggs, toast, coffee. Michael and Sarah ate quickly, gathered their school bags, and left by 7:15. Just another morning. Except it wasn't. At 7:35 a.m., Tyler kissed Linda goodbye at the front door. She noticed nothing unusual, no lingering embrace, no strange words, no indication that this would be the last time she'd see her husband for 48 years. "Have a good day," Linda said. Tyler nodded. "You too." Then he walked out. But here's where the day stopped being ordinary. Tyler didn't take his car. The 1974 Chevrolet Impala sat in the driveway, keys on the kitchen counter. Linda assumed he'd walk to catch the bus. He did that occasionally to save gas money. She was right. Sort of. 7:50 a.m. Mrs. Helen Kowalski, a neighbor 3 houses down, saw Tyler at the Route 12 bus stop on West Burley Street. He was carrying his brown leather briefcase. He looked straight ahead, not acknowledging her wave. He seemed distracted, Mrs. Kowalski later told police. Like he was somewhere else in his mind. Tyler boarded the Route 12 bus heading downtown. The driver, questioned later, had no memory of him, Just another anonymous passenger on a Friday morning commute. The bus arrived downtown at approximately 8:25 a.m. And then, nothing. At 8:47 a.m., a parking garage custodian named Bernard Mills was making his rounds on the third floor of the Water Street parking structure, 6 blocks from Midwest Manufacturing's offices. He found Tyler Harrison's briefcase propped against a concrete pillar in the northeast corner. Just sitting there. Unguarded. Unexplained. Bernard opened it, looking for identification. Inside, work files, 2 pens, a half-eaten turkey sandwich wrapped in plastic, $42 in cash, and Tyler's wallet containing his driver's license, 2 credit cards, a photo of Linda and the kids, and a folded grocery receipt. Everything a man needed to prove who he was. Bernard called building security. Security called the police. But Tyler Harrison was gone. Police canvassed the garage immediately. 3rd floor, northeast corner, a relatively isolated spot, away from the main vehicle flow. No security cameras covered that specific area in 1976. No witnesses reported seeing anyone. Detectives searched the stairwells, the elevator shafts, the surrounding streets. They questioned garage employees, nearby business owners, pedestrians. Nothing. Tyler Harrison had entered the parking garage sometime between 8:25 and 8:47 a.m. He'd left his briefcase. And then he'd disappeared into the November morning like smoke. 11 a.m. Tyler's supervisor at Midwest Manufacturing called the Harrison home. Linda, is Tyler there? He didn't show up for work. Linda felt her stomach drop. He left this morning. He should be there. He's not. 1:30 p.m. Linda called the police. Missing person report filed. Detective Raymond Kowalski assigned to the case. By 2 p.m., officers located the briefcase at the Water Street garage. By 3 p.m., detectives learned about the embezzlement investigation. By 6 p.m., the narrative had shifted. This wasn't just a missing person case anymore. This was either a man running from consequences, or a man silenced before he could talk. Detective Kowalski stood in that parking garage as the sun set, staring at the spot where Tyler's briefcase had been found. "Why leave your ID?" he muttered to his partner. "If you're running, you need your ID. If you're dead, someone took it off your body. So what the hell happened here?" Nobody had an answer. The briefcase was evidence. The car stayed in the driveway. The bus driver remembered nothing. And Tyler Harrison was gone. Detective Raymond Kowalski had been with Milwaukee PD for 16 years. He'd worked homicides, assaults, robberies. He'd seen bodies in alleys and con men in suits. But Tyler Harrison's disappearance? This was different. No body. No blood. No witnesses. Just questions. Kowalski's first theory: Tyler ran. The evidence supported it. A man facing embezzlement charges, scheduled for a formal hearing in 3 days, suddenly vanishes after abandoning his briefcase in a parking garage? Classic flight behavior. He staged it, Kowalski told his captain. Left the briefcase to make us think something happened to him. Bought himself time while we searched for a body instead of searching for him. But Linda Harrison didn't buy it. Tyler would never leave his children, she insisted during her first interview. Never. Whatever's happening, he didn't run. Kowalski pressed her. "Mrs. Harrison, did your husband have access to cash? Secret accounts? Any plans to travel?" Linda shook her head. "We barely had enough for groceries." Tyler didn't have secret anything. But the financial records told a different story. Investigators discovered Tyler had made several small cash withdrawals over the previous month, $200 here, $150 there, totaling approximately $1,500. Not enough to raise red flags, but enough to stockpile an escape fund. By mid-November, the Milwaukee PD had launched a full-scale operation. Search teams combed the Milwaukee River near the Water Street garage. Divers descended into the cold, murky water, searching for a body weighed down with stones or trapped in submerged debris. Nothing. Bloodhounds tracked Tyler's scent from the bus stop to the parking garage, but the trail went cold at the entrance. Whatever happened, happened inside that structure. Forensic teams dusted the briefcase for prints, only Tyler's. They analyzed the contents, nothing unusual. The half-eaten sandwich suggested Tyler had been planning to eat lunch at work, not flee the state. Unless that was part of the misdirection. Detectives interviewed everyone who knew Tyler. Coworkers described him as increasingly anxious but not desperate. Neighbors saw nothing suspicious. The bus driver remembered no one fitting Tyler's description acting strangely. One interview stood out. Martin Schultz, a fellow accountant at Midwest Manufacturing, told police that Tyler had mentioned starting over during a lunch conversation 3 weeks before his disappearance. What did he mean by that? Kowalski asked. I don't know, Martin said. I assumed he meant finding a new job. But now, maybe he meant something else. By December 1976, the investigation stalled. Tyler's bank accounts remained untouched. No withdrawals. No deposits. Frozen. His credit cards went unused. No charges appeared after November 12. His Social Security number went dormant. No tax filings. No employment records. No driver's license renewals. Every database, every system, every bureaucratic trail that tracks a person's existence in America, all of it stopped on November 12, 1976. It was as if Tyler Harrison had been erased. Detective Kowalski couldn't shake the contradictions. If Tyler ran, why leave his ID? If Tyler was murdered, where was the body? Maybe he's in the river and we just haven't found him yet, Kowalski's partner suggested. Maybe, Kowalski replied, staring at Tyler's employee photo. Or maybe he's smarter than we think. By early 1977, media attention faded. The Milwaukee Journal ran a final story, Missing Accountant Case Goes Cold. The file was transferred to the Cold Case Archives. Tyler Harrison became a ghost. Linda Harrison became a widow without a funeral. No death certificate meant no life insurance payout. No body meant no burial. No answers meant no closure. Just an empty chair at the dinner table and 2 children asking when Daddy was coming home. In the first months after Tyler's disappearance, Linda held on to hope. She called hospitals, morgues, homeless shelters. She hired a private investigator in 1977 who charged $500 she didn't have and found nothing. She kept Tyler's clothes in the closet, his toothbrush by the sink, his reading glasses on the nightstand, just in case he walked through the door one day with an explanation that made sense. But he never did. By 1978, hope turned to grief. By 1980, grief turned to acceptance. Your father loved you very much, Linda told Michael and Sarah one night. Whatever happened to him, he loved you. But the community whispered different stories. Some neighbors believed Tyler was a thief who ran. Others thought Linda knew more than she admitted. Some even speculated she was complicit, that she'd helped Tyler disappear and was now playing the victim. The judgment was silent but suffocating. Linda worked 2 jobs, secretary during the day, waitress at night, to keep the house, to feed the kids, to survive. She was exhausted, heartbroken, and alone. Michael, the older child, grew angry. By his teenage years, he'd decided his father was a coward who'd abandoned them. He chose himself over us, Michael said bitterly. He's not my father anymore. Sarah, younger and softer, clung to a different narrative. She believed her father was innocent, that something terrible had happened to him, that he'd never willingly leave them. Daddy's coming back, Sarah would whisper at night. But he didn't. Christmases passed with an empty stocking. Birthdays came without cards. Father's days were silent wounds. Linda dated briefly in the mid-1980s but couldn't move forward. Legally, she was still married. Emotionally, she was trapped in 1976. In 1995, Michael legally changed his last name to his mother's maiden name, Kowalski. He wanted to shed the Harrison legacy, to distance himself from a man who'd caused so much pain. Sarah kept the name. She named her first son Tyler in quiet remembrance. Linda never remarried. She kept a box in the attic filled with Tyler's belongings. His watch, his wedding ring, his reading glasses, old photographs. She couldn't throw them away, but she couldn't look at them either. In 2016, on the 40th anniversary of Tyler's disappearance, a local reporter interviewed Linda for a retrospective piece. "Do you think he's still alive?" the reporter asked. Linda, now 76 years old, shook her head slowly. No. I think he died that day. I just don't know how or why. She was wrong. Tyler Harrison was alive. He'd been alive the entire time, just 340 miles north, living under a different name, carrying the weight of what he'd done. Linda died in April 2018, 2 months after her 78th birthday. She never knew the truth. And that might be the cruelest part of this story. Cold cases don't die. They just fade. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Tyler Harrison's case lingered in Milwaukee PD's files like a stubborn ghost, occasionally resurrected by tips, only to be buried again by dead ends. 1981. A man matching Tyler's description was reportedly spotted boarding a Greyhound bus in Chicago. Police investigated. Wrong person. 1985. Human remains discovered in a wooded area north of Milwaukee. Age and build match Tyler. Dental records didn't. 1989. Detective Raymond Kowalski retired without solving the case that haunted him most. At his retirement party, a colleague asked which case he'd take back if he could solve just one. Tyler Harrison, Kowalski said without hesitation. I still don't know if he's running or rotting. 1994. Tyler's case was featured on a regional true crime television segment. The hotline received 47 calls. 46 were useless. One claimed Tyler was working at a gas station in Phoenix. Police followed up. Dead end. By the 2000s, Tyler Harrison's disappearance had become local legend. Milwaukee old-timers remembered it. Newcomers had never heard of it. The case file passed through 3 more lead detectives, each one reviewing the evidence, finding no new angles, and moving on. In 2003, Milwaukee PD established a dedicated cold case unit equipped with new technology, DNA databases, digital forensics, advanced fingerprint analysis. They reviewed Tyler's case but hit an immediate problem. No body meant no DNA to test. Detective Sarah Chen, assigned to the cold case unit, summarized the frustration in her notes. Without physical evidence or a viable lead, Harrison remains unsolvable. Presumed deceased. Case remains open but inactive. Technology advanced. Databases expanded. America became more connected, more surveilled, more trackable. And still, Tyler Harrison remained invisible. His social security number never activated. No tax returns filed under his name. No driver's licenses issued. No credit applications. No passport renewals. In 2012, facial recognition software advanced enough to scan old photos against modern databases. Tyler's 1976 employee photo was uploaded into the system. No matches. Michael, now in his 40s with a family of his own, rarely spoke about his father. When asked, he'd give a terse response. He's gone. That's all that matters. Sarah, more open, occasionally searched online for updates. She joined a Facebook group for families of missing persons. She shared Tyler's story, hoping someone, somewhere, might recognize him. Nothing. By 2020, Tyler Harrison's case was 44 years old. Most of the original investigators were retired or dead. Linda had passed away. The embezzlement charges were ancient history. Midwest Manufacturing Corporation had dissolved in the 1990s, its records lost to bankruptcy proceedings. The $127,000 Tyler allegedly stole? Adjusted for inflation, it would be worth nearly $500,000 today. But the money was gone, the company was gone, and most people assumed Tyler was gone too. The case was effectively closed without being solved, a permanent question mark in Milwaukee's history. Detective Chen, reviewing the file one last time before her own retirement in 2021, wrote a final note. Harrison case represents a perfect disappearance. No evidence of foul play, no evidence of flight success, no resolution possible. Recommend permanent inactive status. She was about to be proven spectacularly wrong. Because 340 miles north, an 84-year-old man named James Caldwell was about to receive a knock on his door that would unravel 48 years of silence. Detective Amy Tran joined Milwaukee PD's cold case unit in 2021 with a reputation for being relentless and a fascination with genetic genealogy, the same technique that caught the Golden State Killer. Tran believed technology had finally caught up to unsolved cases. DNA databases, ancestry websites, familial matching, these tools could crack cases that traditional investigation never could. In early 2022, Tran began reviewing Milwaukee's oldest unsolved disappearances. Tyler Harrison's file caught her attention. Not because of the evidence, there was barely any, but because of the timeline. 1976 to now, Tran muttered, studying the file. That's 46 years. If Harrison ran, he'd be 84 years old. Old enough to be vulnerable. Old enough to make mistakes. Unlike most cold cases, Tyler Harrison's disappearance had an unusual possibility. He might still be alive. Tran reached out to Dr. Rebecca Morrison, a genetic genealogist who'd consulted on multiple cold cases. Together, they formulated a plan. The problem: no DNA from Tyler. The solution: familial DNA. In 2020, Sarah Harrison, Tyler's daughter, had submitted her DNA to an ancestry database, hoping it might somehow connect to information about her father. She'd given consent for law enforcement access. Dr. Morrison uploaded Sarah's DNA profile to GeneMatch, a public genealogy database used by investigators. Then they waited. March 17, 2023. A match appeared. Not a parent match. Not a sibling match. A second cousin match, someone sharing approximately 3.125% of Sarah's DNA, consistent with a familial relationship through her father's line. The profile belonged to someone named James Caldwell in Duluth, Minnesota. Tran's heart raced. Who is James Caldwell? Dr. Morrison began digging. Birth records, employment history, tax filings, property records. All of James Caldwell's documented life began in 1977. Nothing before that. No birth certificate. No childhood records. No high school transcripts. James Caldwell simply appeared in Minneapolis in 1977 as a 39-year-old man applying for a bookkeeper position. This is him, Tran whispered. This has to be him. She pulled James Caldwell's driver's license photo from Minnesota DMV records. A man in his mid-80s, gray hair, deep-set eyes, gaunt face. Tran compared it to aged progression software images of Tyler Harrison. The bone structure matched. The ears matched. The eyes, even after 46 years, met. We need to move carefully, Tran told her captain. If this is Harrison, he's been hiding for nearly 5 decades. He's not going to confess easily. In August 2024, Tran coordinated with Duluth Police Department. They obtained a warrant for a knock and talk, a voluntary interview request. September 4, 2024, 2 p.m. 2 Duluth officers and Detective Tran approached a modest apartment building on East Superior Street. 3rd floor, Unit 304. Tran knocked. Footsteps shuffled inside. The door opened. An elderly man stood in the doorway, thin and frail, wearing a cardigan and slippers. His eyes widened when he saw the officers. James Caldwell? Tran asked. The man nodded slowly. Tran took a breath. Sir, we're here to ask you some questions about Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Specifically, about November 12, 1976. The color drained from James Caldwell's face. We believe your real name is Tyler Harrison. For a long moment, James Caldwell said nothing. His hands trembled. His lips moved soundlessly. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, I've been waiting for you. He stepped aside, letting them in. Inside the apartment, sparse furniture, neatly organized, almost sterile. No photos on the walls. No personal touches. Just the shell of a life. Except for one thing. On a small desk near the window, tucked inside a worn envelope, were newspaper clippings. Old, yellowed articles from the Milwaukee Journal. Missing accountant Tyler Harrison. Family searches for answers. Harrison case goes cold. And beneath those clippings, a photograph. 2 children, Michael and Sarah, smiling at the camera. Christmas 1975. Tyler Harrison had been dead for 48 years. James Caldwell had been alive the whole time. And now, finally, the truth was about to surface. The confession was recorded on September 4, 2024, At 3:47 p.m. in the Duluth Police Department's interview room, Tyler Harrison, no longer pretending to be James Caldwell, sat across from Detective Amy Tran. His hands were folded on the table, his voice quiet but steady. He'd been carrying this story for 48 years. Now, finally, he could set it down. "I did it," Tyler began. "The embezzlement of it. $127,000 over 18 months. Tran listened, recorder running. "It started small," Tyler continued. "Sarah's medical bills were crushing us. Insurance didn't cover half of it. We were drowning. I saw an opportunity, a loophole in the vendor payment system. I could create false invoices, approve them myself, and redirect the payments to an account I controlled." He paused, his eyes distant. "I told myself it was temporary. I'd pay it back. I'd fix everything." But he didn't. By October 1976, the audit caught the discrepancies. "I knew it was over. I knew they'd trace it to me." The hearing was scheduled for November 15th. "I had 3 days." Tyler's voice cracked. "I couldn't go to prison. I couldn't face Linda. I couldn't watch my children learn their father was a thief." So Tyler Harrison made a plan. Throughout October, he withdrew small amounts of cash, $1,500 total, from their joint account. Not enough to raise suspicion. On November 11th, he contacted a man he'd met years earlier, someone who dealt in forged documents. Tyler never revealed the name. "I paid him $800 for a birth certificate, social security card, and driver's license. All under the name James Caldwell. It was a real person who died as an infant in 1938. No one would check." November 12th, Tyler executed his plan. He left home normally, walked to the bus stop, rode downtown. But instead of going to work, he walked to the Water Street parking garage. "I left my briefcase there on purpose," Tyler said. "I wanted them to think something happened to me. I wanted them to search for a body instead of searching for a fugitive." He walked 6 blocks to the Greyhound station, bought a ticket to Minneapolis with cash, and gave a false name. On the bus, Tyler Harrison shaved his mustache in the tiny restroom. He put on reading glasses he didn't need. He dyed his hair darker using a drugstore kit. Small changes. Enough to blur recognition. "In Minneapolis, I became James Caldwell. I found a cheap room, applied for a bookkeeper job at a lumber company, and started over." For the first year, Tyler monitored news about his disappearance. He read about the searches, the investigation, Linda's anguish. "I almost turned myself in 100 times, Tyler said, tears streaming down his face. "But I couldn't. I'd already hurt them. Revealing the truth would only make it worse." So he stayed hidden. In the early 1980s, Tyler sent anonymous money orders to Linda, $50 here, $100 there. He never included notes. He didn't know if she received them or if she connected them to him. "I wanted to help, but I couldn't reveal myself." Years passed. Tyler watched from a distance as Michael and Sarah grew up through occasional newspaper mentions and obituaries. He learned Linda died in 2018 from an online death notice. "I cried for 3 days, Tyler said. "She died thinking I was dead. I robbed her of everything." Tyler lived alone in Duluth. Never married. No close friends. No family. Just James Caldwell, bookkeeper, invisible man. "I deserved the loneliness," Tyler said. "It was my punishment." He worked, paid taxes under his false identity, and lived a quiet, hollow existence. "Every birthday, every Christmas, I thought about Michael and Sarah. I clipped newspaper articles about them when I could find them. Sarah named her son Tyler. I saw his birth announcement online." Tyler's voice broke completely. "I wanted to reach out. I wanted to tell her I was sorry. But how do you come back from being dead for 40 years? So he didn't. Until September 4, 2024, when Detective Tran knocked on his door. "I'm glad you found me," Tyler whispered. "I've been waiting for this knock for 48 years. Silence filled the room. Tyler Harrison's disappearance was solved. But the damage he'd caused would never be undone. The legal resolution was almost anticlimactic. Tyler Harrison was arrested on September 5, 2024, charged with identity fraud and falsifying federal documents. The embezzlement charges? Statute of limitations had expired decades ago. The $127,000 was legally unreachable. Given Tyler's age, 86 years old, and failing health, prosecutors negotiated a plea deal. Tyler pleaded guilty, received 18 months probation, and time served for the months spent in legal custody. The legal system was done with Tyler Harrison. But his family wasn't. Sarah learned about her father's discovery through a phone call from Detective Tran. "Miss Harrison, we found your father. He's alive." Sarah dropped the phone. For weeks, she wrestled with impossible emotions. Relief that he was alive. Rage that he'd chosen to disappear. Heartbreak that he'd let them suffer for 48 years. In November 2024, Sarah agreed to meet Tyler. The reunion occurred in a supervised facility in Milwaukee. Tyler, frail and trembling, sat across from the daughter he hadn't seen since 1976. Sarah, now 57, stared at the old man who was her father but also a stranger. "Why?" she asked, her voice shaking. "Why didn't you come back?" Tyler had no answer that could possibly suffice. "I was scared," he whispered. "I was ashamed. I convinced myself you were better off thinking I was dead." "We weren't better off," Sarah said, tears streaming. "Mom died broken. Michael changed his name. I spent my entire life wondering if you were murdered or if you'd abandoned us. I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't give me back my father." The conversation lasted 2 hours. At the end, Sarah stood to leave. "I don't know if I can forgive you," she said, "but I'm glad you're alive. I think." Michael, now 60, refused to meet Tyler. He released a public statement through his attorney. Tyler Harrison died on November 12, 1976. "James Caldwell is a stranger who shares his DNA. I have no father. I have no interest in reopening wounds that took decades to heal." The public reaction was divided. Some saw Tyler as a victim of desperation, a man crushed by medical debt and impossible choices who made a terrible decision. Others saw him as a coward who prioritized his freedom over his family's well-being. Online forums exploded with debate. Reddit threads dissected every detail. YouTube crime channels cover. Continue. 214. Would you do what Tyler did? Became a common question. Linda's old friends were bitter. She died thinking he was dead. He stole her closure. He stole her peace. Detective Tran, closing the case file, reflected on the strange nature of solving a cold case where the victim was also the perpetrator. "We found him," Tran said in a press conference. "But I'm not sure anyone won." Tyler returned to Duluth to serve out his probation. He lives under his real name now, no more James Caldwell. Sarah visits occasionally. The conversations are stilted, careful. She brings photos of her children, Tyler's grandchildren he never knew. Tyler writes letters to Sarah weekly, apologizing, explaining, seeking forgiveness he knows he doesn't deserve. She reads them. Sometimes she responds. Michael never contacts him. In December 2024, Tyler turned 86 years old. He spends his days in his small apartment, staring out the window at Duluth's snow-covered streets. He's free from hiding, but he's still a prisoner of what he did. The cold case of Tyler Harrison is solved, but some wounds never close. Tyler Harrison's story isn't a traditional cold case. There was no murder, no villain lurking in shadows, no dramatic courtroom justice. Just a man who made a choice and spent 48 years living with the consequences. Tyler tried to outrun his mistakes. He changed his name, moved to a new city, built a new identity. But he never stopped being Tyler Harrison. The guilt followed him. The memories haunted him. The loneliness became his cage. For 48 years, Tyler lived as James Caldwell, but every night he went to bed as the man who abandoned his children. Every morning he woke to the weight of what he'd done. You can change your name. You can change your face. But you can't outrun yourself. Linda Harrison lived 42 years without answers. She died believing Tyler was murdered, never knowing he was alive just 340 miles away. That's the cruelest irony. Tyler thought disappearing would spare his family pain. Instead, it magnified it. His absence became a wound that never healed, A constant, aching question mark. Michael changed his name, trying to shed his father's legacy. Sarah clung to hope, building a narrative where her father was innocent. Both were wrong. Tyler was neither innocent victim nor heartless monster. He was a desperate man who made an unforgivable choice under unbearable pressure. But does desperation justify abandonment? Sarah struggles with that question. She wants to forgive her father. He's old, frail, dying. But forgiveness doesn't erase 48 years of absence. Michael refuses to engage. He built a life without Tyler Harrison. He doesn't need a father now. Who's right? Maybe both. Maybe neither. What we know is this. Tyler Harrison embezzled $127,000 and destroyed something far more valuable: his family's trust, his children's stability, his wife's peace. The money's long gone. The damage remains. Detective Tran, reflecting on the case, said, "Some cold cases end with justice. Others end with just truth. This one ended with truth. And sometimes, truth is the cruelest outcome. Because the truth is Tyler Harrison was a coward. He ran instead of facing consequences. He prioritized his freedom over his family. But the truth is also Tyler Harrison was human. Flawed. Desperate. Broken. We want our stories to have clear heroes and villains. Tyler's story has neither. Just a man who tried to escape his life and discovered that wherever you go, you take yourself with you. James Caldwell was a ghost. Tyler Harrison was always real. And now, in his final years, Tyler sits alone in Duluth, staring at photographs of children who are now strangers, wondering if redemption is even possible. Some cold cases are solved with handcuffs. This one was solved with a knock on a door. And an old man whispering, "I've been waiting for you." Tyler Harrison is alive. But the life he left behind is gone forever. His children will never get back the years they lost. Linda will never know he survived. The $127,000 is dust. The case is closed. The mystery is solved. But nothing is truly resolved. Detective Tran summarized it best. "We found him. But I'm not sure anyone won." Tyler Harrison, now 86, lives in Duluth under his real name. Occasionally, Sarah visits. The conversations are heavy, loaded with decades of unspoken pain. Michael never contacts him. To Michael, Tyler Harrison died in 1976. The old man in Duluth is just a ghost wearing his father's face. Tyler spends his days alone, staring at a photograph of two children he hasn't seen in 48 years. He writes letters to Sarah, apologizing, explaining, begging for forgiveness he knows he doesn't deserve. Some she reads, some she doesn't. The question that haunts everyone: if you could rewrite your life, would you? Tyler Harrison tried. And lost everything. The cold case of Tyler Harrison is solved. But some wounds never close. Some disappearances are permanent, even when the missing are found. So what do you think? Was Tyler Harrison a desperate man driven by impossible circumstances, or a coward who chose himself over his family? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this case as gripping as we did, check out our other solved cold cases. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because the truth is always stranger than fiction. Thanks for watching.